What's up, everybody? This is Mind Your Money with Miss Be Helpful, a show that highlights people and stories that will inspire you to get your money right. And this week on the podcast, I took a bit of a pause from all of the interviews that I was doing with financial influencers. And I want to really talk to somebody who's actually built an entire platform specifically to help people with financial troubles. And today I'm talking to Tanya Menendez. Welcome to the show, Tanya.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So for those of you listening, Tanya is the co-founder of Snowball Wealth, which we are going to talk all about exactly what the brand does, what's the platform for. But first, I always just like to get a little personal with people that are on the show, because I think, whenever you're talking about money or listening to a show about money, there's always a tension, right? Because we're talking about money. And so I think there's an easy way to break that tension a little bit is to just talk about our raw and real stories. And so the first question that I always open with is, what is your biggest money regret? A time that maybe you spent way too much money and you wish you could take it back. When you hear that question, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Well, it's a little embarrassing, but I think the biggest money regret happened when I was 19, and I actually spent $8,000 on laser hair removal.
Wow,
on like a lifetime
8,
package.
Wait, not 1,800, 8,000. Wow.
It was like a lifetime package for life. And so the salesperson really got me. And to be honest, I was surprised, like looking back, I'm surprised that they gave a 19-year-old an $8,000 loan. Like
Seriously?
I was like a server at a restaurant. Like I did not have that type of income.
That is nuts. That woman must have had the bomb sales pitch, girl. $8,000.
I mean, at the time, laser hair removal was like a new technology.
Mm-hmm.
They just got the machine that allowed for it to be used on my skin color. And so I was pretty excited about it. But, looking back, it ended up being a big headache.
Mm-hmm.
And the company actually went out of business. And so I had to negotiate the debt down, and it was a whole mess. But you know what? It really taught me that companies don't always have your best interest in mind, and you really have to look out for yourself. And debt can be really toxic in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
That is no. So wait, did it end up impacting your credit score, your credit report? Because you said you had to negotiate with them for the debt. Did it affect your credit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, luckily it was, over 10 years ago. So all of that's resolved. It was resolved within a few years, but it definitely was a big headache for me for a few years. And I had to do a lot of research, figuring things out on my own. I didn't tell my parents. I just was Googling and calling and trying to negotiate things on my own. And so it was just a whole mess.
Oh my goodness. Did they ever find out? And if so, how did they react?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of chalked it up to of course, Tanya, would do this. So I think I told them after it was all resolved, and we kind of they yelled at me for a bit, but I think that was about it. I'm glad I told them after it was all done.
Right. You wait till you figured it out. You sort it all out, and then you open up a can of worms.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so funny. Actually makes me remember when I had really bad credit card debt, and I had just graduated college. I came back home, and my parents and my family were like, "Oh, Janely just graduated from a great school. She's gonna come back. She's gonna do all these great things." And at that time, I didn't have any student loan debt because I got a scholarship. So they just thought I was just debt free. And mind you, I had all this secret credit card debt that I was like, oh, I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them about it.
Yeah, because I'm not going to ask them for money. I'm not going to what am I going to gain from stressing them out? So I just figure that out on my own.
Shout out to huge shout out to all the young people out here really trying to figure out their finances on their own, especially if you're first generation, because and whether that means first generation American or first generation to go to college, both, because you're really trying to navigate the waters without any assistance at all, and your family oftentimes doesn't know even how to help you, so you really are all on your own. So
exactly,
huge shout out. Oh man, that's crazy. I can't believe you said 8,000. At first I was like, wait, did she say 1,800 and I misheard her?
No, 8,000. That's how bad it was.
Jeez. Okay, so let's flip the script and let's go to the other side of that scenario. So a time where you spent a lot of money, but actually looking back, you don't regret it because it was worth it for you.
So to be honest, I don't spend a ton of money now. The time that I did spend money, I did take a year off in between startups.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I spent a lot of money on personal development. So one of the big ticket items was a conference on a boat that was $5,000, which is
Ooh.
a lot of money, yeah, for just for myself. But at that conference, I actually met my first angel investor for Snowball. So it ended up being something that was worthwhile and paid for itself in the end.
Yeah, but it still was less than the laser hair removal, though. So.
You're right. You're right. It was definitely.
I'm like, at the end of the day, it was definitely worth it because you saved money compared to the laser hair removal.
I mean, I think back, like, what if I had invested those $8,000 when I was 19? Like, it would have.
Seriously, man. It's crazy how we think back like that, especially when you're in your late 20s or 30s and beyond. You really think back to all the dumb stuff you did with money. You're like, I could have done this, I could have done that. But at the end of the day, like I personally have come to the point where I'm like, it doesn't serve you to sit there and beat yourself up about it. Like, literally just laugh about it, move on from it. Don't make the same mistake twice. But, at the same time, don't harbor on it because it's only going to make you frustrated and you can't go back and change it, so.
Exactly. And so now I just share it to be able to, you know, it's normal to make mistakes when you're young.
Yeah.
And now I just try to help people prevent them.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about Snowball Wealth first, and then we'll jump into a bit more about your backstory. Because now I bet people are curious about your upbringing, like, your parents, your family. You already talked to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you went through with debt. But thinking about the platform that you're building right now, Snowball Wealth, which is specifically for helping people that are stuck with student loan debt and really need to sort it out and help themselves with an organizational system around it. So talk to us about what you've developed, and being the co-founder of Snowball Wealth, like what is it that you want really your company to be able to accomplish for people, and how you want it to help people?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started Snowball to solve a problem that I experienced personally. So I had 30,000 in student debt. I ended up paying 30,000 in interest.
Wow.
And so I was just frustrated by like the lack of transparency. It's not clear what your options are. And it wasn't until the very end where I saw that I had other options on how to tackle my debt.
Yeah.
So my goal for the platform is to help people come up with a plan to save money on their student loans,
Yeah.
explore options that they have, and just be more educated on the entire process and what options are available. So for us, we really take more of a financial education slant versus like other platforms that are more transactional and just like try to get you to do one thing. We mostly are trying to help you understand your loans and understand your options.
Yeah. And I love that because I feel like it's usually the case that you find out on the outset of your student loan situation what's going on. And when you're coming into it, you're young, you're really just probably desperate for the money just to be able to pay for school because you can't conceive of another way to do it. Or B, you're just like, okay, whatever, this is just something that I have to do, but you're not really tuned into the details, the terms, the conditions, because what the heck, you're 18, like, you're not paying attention to those things. And so it's interesting to me, like the large majority of people with student loan debt, it's after the student loans are already, you're already signed on the dotted line, you're already finished with college, and now that you have to repay, is that you're starting to learn the things that you should have learned before you signed on the dotted line. So it's sort of like, it feels like the system is just all messed up. So it's interesting that you say that your focus and your target with the platform is to focus on financial education and student loan education, rather than just trying to target them with like, oh, you should just get this loan, or you should consolidate, or you should do this process or that, and let us hook you up with this company. It's not about that. It's more so like, how can we help you understand what you got yourself into and know that there is a clear path out, and that you can choose that path for yourself, but you first have to learn about your situation.
Absolutely. And I think that for us, our overall mission is also to help people gain financial confidence and make financial progress.
Yes.
So I think that for a lot of people, student debt is the first type of debt that they take out.
Yes.
And so it's also the first kind of big win that you could have too, if you start to take advantage of it and, take advantage of everything that's available in terms of tackling it.
Yeah, definitely. I got very, very lucky because, and a lot of people that are listening to the show who have been listening for all 20 plus episodes already and who know me from YouTube will know that student loans for me wasn't such a huge issue. I was one of those lucky kids that got a full scholarship to college. Yeah. But when I got there, I realized very quickly that the scholarship covered tuition, it covered room and board, and it covered meal plan, but it didn't cover all the other things like lab fees and textbooks and all these different things that like art supplies, because I was taking a lot of art classes when I was in school, like all those things add up. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to come up with the money for those things? So in my case, credit cards was my first way into debt and to understand, to like just getting my credit all messed up and everything. But when I was a junior, I actually really, really wanted to go study abroad. And I had been taking French for like forever, since I was like in middle school. Yeah. And I was like, what's the point of me taking French all these years if I'm never going to go to France? And so like, I was like, I got to go now or I'm never going to go. And so I took out a $5,000 student loan to go study abroad. And the funny thing is, when I graduated college, for some weird reason, well, we all know the reason is because of a lack of financial education, but I was so scared of my student loans and I wasn't really that nervous about my credit card debt. Which is kind of crazy because, the interest rates are like 4 or 5 times as high with credit cards compared to your student loans. But in my case, I just, for some reason, the way the media stigmatizes student loan debt, especially for millennials, like I just was like, I don't want to have student loan debt. So I focused so hard on paying off my student loans, and those $5,000 was paid off like so fast. Yeah. And my credit cards were growing at like a 27% interest rate. I was like, I wish I could go back.
Oh my gosh, it stresses me out thinking about it.
Right? Girl.
Yeah. And actually, we updated the platform because we noticed that a lot of people came in with student debt and credit card debt. So we updated the platform, and now we ask if you have credit card debt, and then we give you options on how to pay off your credit card debt first and prioritize that first over your student debt, because I think that's a common misconception that student debt is, worse than credit card debt, or credit card debt's somehow more acceptable. But it's really about like the interest rates and like how much debt you have in general.
Definitely. But, yeah, I mean, and to me, like, I think in simple terms, for me, the way that I understood it was your interest rate is the rate of growth. Like, if you think of it like that, like literally think about your loans running in a race, and whoever's running faster is growing fast. That's more money that you owe. And so when you look at your student loans and they're like less than 5% or less than 6%, and you look at your credit cards, they're like 15, 20, 19%, you clearly can say your credit cards are winning the race. They're growing way faster. And so you want to attack them first. You want to put, throw some stones on the ground so they can trip and fall. You got to do something to prevent them from running so fast, because that's literally what's growing your debt so quickly. And it becomes, something that just easily could get out of control.
Absolutely. And also there's a bunch of differences within the student debt space too, like private loans. I was surprised to find that some private loans were 15, 18%.
Yes.
Which just blew my mind. I was like, how are
that is so true.
Like the same interest rate as credit card loans. And so, not all student debt is created equal either. And there is some credit cards that offer like a 0% APR. Also, so there's some other options that are available with credit card debts. It's really important to understand that the interest rate, and I love the analogy that you have of it running and racing. It's that's exactly how we need to think about it.
Yes, and you got to be chasing down the highest interest rate. But for me too, I always think of like the way that I am. I was a classroom teacher right after college, and so my focus has always been like teaching. Like you got to teach people, because if you don't understand the foundational aspects of whatever topic it is, you're never going to be able to understand the higher order stuff, like how to solve the problem, how to evaluate the problem, how to compare and contrast like different options. You can't get to that type of thinking unless you have the basics. And I realize so many people don't know the basics of money, the basics of interest rates, the basics of inflation. And it's just like, so I mean, when I talked to you and I first met you, I was like, you know what? This company seems like the perfect type of company to push towards student loans, because it's focusing on education first. And that spoke to me. Being like I was a teacher, being that I focus on education as my platform, I think we have to stop focusing on how to like get a client to sign up and get money from them, and figure out like if you're educating people, first and foremost, they are going to want more help because you've helped them already just off the bat by educating them and empowering them. So I want more companies to be like that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's really what, my co-founders and I really started it with that mindset
Yeah.
because we all experienced it personally. We were really frustrated by just like all of these companies that just didn't make it clear like what are your options? How much are you really paying? And yeah, so no, I appreciate the support. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know it's a journey for sure creating a fintech company, especially when the majority are, white men that are creating it.
Absolutely. It's such a male dominated space, and in particular white men. And it is very, very hard, I think, to even just go from an idea to like creating an actual company. Like that it's just so much. And so like for you to be Latina, to be a co-founder of a fintech company, and to be targeting such an important issue like student loan debt, especially for our generation, it's like, it's just a breath of fresh air. So I'm really happy to have you on. I want to do two things. So first I want to talk a little bit more about the platform, and then I want you to tell us the backstory. Like, how did you upbringing, like how did you know you always wanted to like build a company? Did you think that was going to be something you were going to do? But first I want to like have you imagine somebody who has never, ever, ever heard of Snowball Wealth, has never seen the app, just downloaded for the first time, just went on the website for the first time. What's their interaction going to be like? Describe to us what we would see and how we would interact with Snowball.
Yeah. So the way that it works is that you sign up. It's a web app. So you have to go to the website, you sign up, username, password. We then ask you a few questions around your goals around your student debt. So do you want to pay it off faster? Do you want to reduce the monthly payments? Are you just curious and want to browse? And then we also ask you some other information on your credit score, debt. And then you can sync your accounts directly through us. So we use an API called Plaid that integrates with accounts. And we use that because it's extra secure.
Okay.
One of my co-founders, the technical co-founder, she actually specializes in privacy and security. And so all of our data is encrypted. And so once you integrate your accounts, you then get a loan summary. And so we organize all of your student debt in one place. And then we also pull out the interest rates. We also pull out whether you have COVID relief or not, whether you're in
Nice.
forbearance or not. And then we also give you analysis on your student loan. So we say, this is how much you're paying in interest. This is based on like how much you're paying now. You're going to be paying
Right.
it off in 10 years, 20
Right.
years. And then we give you recommendations on how to save money. So you can save, $5,000 by making this amount of extra payments. And then we also have other resources like budget templates, debt to income ratio calculators, and just other money stories to inspire people on how people like paid off massive amounts of debt.
Right.
And, we try to bring out real stories from our community to kind of share and inspire others.
Yeah, that is such a, like, I think it's so overlooked, the importance of inspiring stories. That's like, for me, that's a huge part of my platform here with Mind Your Money. It's like, it's not just strategies. It's not just like education. You also have to know that this is possible because other people have done it, other people that are like you. And that's why for me, I focus on inspiring stories to help people know like, hey, if this person did it, if she's similar to me and she has a similar background, a similar experience, a similar income, a similar financial burden, and yet she's been able to overcome it, then I can do it. And just that belief that you can do it is so powerful. That shift in your mind from like, this is impossible to I can do this, this is possible. Like that's half the battle right there, honestly. So, so I really love that you incorporate those inspiring stories, and that there's wraparound stuff as well. It's not just student loan focus. You also talk about budgeting. You also talk about like the credit card. Like it's all part of your holistic financial plan. So I really love that. Now I'm curious to know more about you because this isn't your first fintech venture, and you talked a little bit about like other projects, but I want, or you alluded to them, but I want to know more about like your upbringing, any early money stories that you remember, and how you think that might have led you to do the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I grew up in Hayward, and growing up, my dad was a factory worker. My mom was a secretary. And so, pretty working class. And they ended up switching jobs while I was, growing up. Parents weren't founders or entrepreneurs, but they were very entrepreneurial, I would say. So
Yeah.
I think just like witnessing their story on like how they came to the US as teenagers with no money, And although they never said it explicitly, they kind of modeled like determination and drive and grit. And I think that's common for a lot of kind of immigrant families too.
Absolutely.
Um, so they really taught me that like you have nothing to lose by trying and you have nothing to lose by asking.
Love it.
And so that's really what has driven my career decisions. I think that, I knew that I wanted to dedicate my life to having like a positive impact, to solving problems. And one of my early money stories, so it's funny because I have a lot of like money memories with my family. And I think that, my family really taught me that, or like my upbringing really taught me that, money can give you freedom and choices, but it can also bring a lot of stress and hardship if
Mm.
you make the wrong decisions. And so my parents made some great decisions. My parents also made some bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that overall it taught me that like just having awareness of what your options are, educating yourself, really being curious about like what's possible, I think is important. But like I think that one thing that my parents did that I definitely want to do with my kids was that my dad opened up a bank account under my name when I was in fourth grade. And
Nice.
and so anytime I had like ideas to make money, like for example, I was like, I did hair, like twist. Remember those twisties? I don't know if this is like,
Yes, with the butterfly clips. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
So I
Yes.
was like, so I would do those twisties for money when I was a kid, and then I would
Yes.
for like quinceañeras or whatever, and then I would take that
Hmm.
money and put it into the bank account. And so
Nice.
like by the time I was 18, I had like all of the money that I had saved over like these like random like
Wow.
side hustles
Yeah.
as like a child.
Yeah.
But so my parents didn't really give me a ton of like investment strategies or anything like that, but I think that they taught me that like anything is possible and anything that you set your mind to, you can achieve. And I think that overall that's been the best money lesson that they've given me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I honestly, the more people that I meet that have become very successful, whether it is creating a company, being entrepreneurial, or whether it is just like, having a high net worth, I find that that's a common trait. It's like this belief, this mentality that like the sky's the limit. And actually the sky's not your limit. The universe is out there. So go past the sky. And
Yeah.
it's like, and it's funny because growing up, I feel like I had a very, the opposite experience where I was constantly reminded like, well, what if there's not enough of this? Or what if there's no room?
Yeah.
Or what if, all these, it was constantly a negative like comeback every time a new idea was proposed, or every time something, a question, like if I asked a question, it was like, oh, but usually negatively framed. And that kind of, it created a mindset in me that was very much a scarcity mindset up until more recently, as I started reading more books and, getting into my own journey of personal
Yeah.
growth, that I challenged myself to stop thinking of limitations and start thinking of, okay, but what about all the things that could go right? Stop
Yeah.
focusing on the negative so much. And so I love that, not so much that your parents gave you like financial lessons, but
Right.
more so that they developed within you this mentality that applied to finances as well. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, they definitely do have like a fear mentality when it comes to trying new things, which is funny because they're scared of you trying new things, but they weren't scared of
Yeah.
trying things themselves. And so so I mostly got that mentality from like seeing what their actions were, not necessarily what
Yeah.
they would say to me. I
Yes.
think that like, my parents, they always wanted me to have a very stable job and they always wanted me to like be close to home. That's
Hmm.
like the American dream for them,
Right, right,
right?
right.
But so like when I got a job in New York, they were like, "Don't move to New York. Like
Oh.
they're gonna rob you there. Like it's dangerous. Like a young woman like by herself in New York." But I ended up going anyway, which I'm happy about. And then because I got a job at Goldman Sachs like right out of college, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this risk. I'm gonna try it. And then when when I wanted to quit Goldman, then they were like, "Oh no, stay at Goldman. Like, don't
Oh
take the risk.
boy.
Don't start a company." Why
y'all
would you
make up
leave
your
something
minds?
stable?
You're
I'm
like,
like, what? There's no winning. So like
that's
eventually
right.
like they're gonna be
Yeah.
on board is like what I figured.
Yeah, that's so funny because our parents tend to be like that all the time. I mean, I remember at one point I was dating this guy and my parents really liked him. Or at first he was a little too older for me. Like he was 5 or 6 years older than me, but I was like maybe 16. And so that means he was like 21, 22. That is a little bit like too, I
Yeah.
think,
That's
mature for like a teenager. But at my age, I was very mature and he was a little immature. So we kind of matched up. But my parents were like, no, no, no. How does that look? You can't be dating somebody who's over 20. You're 15, 16, And then it's funny because after we started dating and I brought him over formally, and after like a few years, they were like, no, but what do you mean you want to break up with him? You guys should get married. You guys are so perfect. I'm like, now that I don't want to be with him, you want me to be with him. But when I wanted to be with him, you didn't want me to be with him. Make up
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah, there's
Ay,
this
ay,
saying
ay.
in Spanish that like really resonates with me. It's like la costumbre es más fuerte que el amor. And like
Yes.
I think that's the same with my parents is that they just like want something that feels steady.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think the same comes with like money habits, right? Like we do what we're used to. We
Right.
do what feels like comfortable. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's uncomfortable to start to like invest. Sometimes it's uncomfortable
That's
to
right.
like start to tackle debt. And so
Yeah, that's
yeah, that
right.
saying always like comes back to me.
That's true. Okay, so now you just talked about how it can be uncomfortable, right? To deal with debt, to tackle debt. So being that Snowball really focuses primarily on student loan debt and tackling student loan debt, what advice would you have for listeners who like they just feel stuck or maybe
Yeah.
hopeless, like completely hopeless about their student loan debt situation? What would you say to them? And, how might you console them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for the first thing is that you're not alone. There's 45 million people with 46 million actually, with student loan debt.
That's
And
right.
so you're not alone. A lot of this is like a very common um, issue. And then I think that overall it starts with taking the first step and just being like honest with what your situation is and just like start to uncover slowly like what you're able to do with your debt. You don't have to do everything in one day.
Right.
That's one piece is just like start to, face the debt and know that you're not alone.
Right.
And the second piece is I think like start to form your own support system around this. We started
Mm-hmm.
a Slack community for women to talk about money. And it's been really awesome seeing like people like starting to share their money stories and starting to share kind of like their concerns and what they're anxious about. And I think just saying like sometimes anxiety, you just have to say it out loud and
That's
it
right.
starts to like have less power over you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that just starting to talk to people, try not to give into this like taboo of like talking about money because that really doesn't serve anyone except for the people that, are like trying to like rob you or get you or like rob your money and like trying to get you to
Right.
like, sign up for $8,000 in laser hair removal. Like if I had talked to anyone about that, they would have told me that that's a bad idea.
Don't do that, girl. Don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, like literally anyone I could have talked to, they would have told me it's a bad idea. So I think that having a support system, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, but like have a few people that you can confide in and try to talk about like your debt situation around, and it'll start to feel more manageable.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I always tell people that one of the biggest reasons why I was able to succeed paying off my crazy high interest rate, $20,000 of credit card debt, was because I found a community online. Like I went on Instagram, I went on YouTube, and I found other people talking about their challenges with their debt and strategies they were using to pay off their debt and to save more and to make more and to pinch
Yeah.
pennies. And I was like, yo, this is my people right here. Like this is my tribe. They're going to help me do it. They're doing it too. And so even if that doesn't mean physical people in real life, like around you. Maybe you don't have, maybe that's just not the case. You don't have people around you that are dealing with it. But if not, the internet exists.
Yeah,
Hello.
exactly.
It's the 21st century. You will find people dealing with this online. And having that support is definitely something that I think makes a huge impact on your motivation and also, your ability to actually know all the different ways and strategies and tactics that you could be putting in place in your own life. Just learning from more people, right? The more brains put together, the more ideas are going to come from that. So I definitely agree.
Absolutely.
I have a question here that I want to make sure I ask, and I feel like I had an opportunity to ask it earlier and I didn't really talk about it, but I want to come back to it. So you talked about being in the fintech space, how it is very rare to find Latinas. It's not hard to find Latinos in the US. You know, I mean, we're the largest ethnic minority group in the country. And I actually read this week that it's projected, according to the 2018 census, the projection is that by the year 2060, so 2060, we'll have over 111 million Latinos in the U.S., which is insane. So when you think about the numbers of us, it's kind of crazy to think that you can't really find us in spaces like fintech or finance or bank, you know, things like that. So can you talk about your professional experience a little bit more and how your work has been shaped or informed by your identity as a Latina?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to find out that like only 3% of the tech workforce is Latino in general, and for companies getting funded, less than 1% of VC funding goes to Latinas, which is insane. And we also over-index in actually creating businesses, so it should be the opposite. So for me, I think that, you know, because I had this mission of solving problems, of wanting to like create a vision of like the future that feels more equitable or feels like more fair. I saw that technology was like impacting our lives and like really is getting into every piece of like society as a whole. And so for me, like that's why I was really excited to get into tech. So when I started my first tech company, I literally Googled like how to start a tech company because I didn't know anyone in tech. And that's the problem. Like most Latinas don't know other Latinas in tech, right? So I was just like, and this was like in 2011. So this was before there were a lot of these like organizations. There's now a lot more organizations and like communities, but back then there wasn't. And so
and honestly, even at that time, social media wasn't even the craze that it is right now. It wasn't at that level, at the height that it is now in 2011. So you're right.
Absolutely. And so, you know, for me, I just like out of curiosity was like, how do I start a tech? And so I just started going to events. I started to, you know, sign up for newsletters, just read a lot on how to do this. And eventually I got accepted into an accelerator, which gave us some funding. And then later on we raised money. And then, you know, things kind of went from there. So, but a lot of it, you know, a lot of my experience over the years was like being the only Latina, being like sometimes the only woman in the room. And things are changing now, but I think that it still feels a little isolating sometimes, not, you know, not having that community that feels like comfortable and that kind of understands you on a more cultural level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I too recognize that, like, yeah, it is changing, but it's still very slow progress. So even though a lot of people are like celebrating a lot of what's happening that's good, we also have to recognize that for people in the space like you, it might not feel like there's a whole lot to celebrate just yet because it's such slow progress. You can barely really feel it on a micro level. Of course, macro, you can look at the numbers and the statistics, but those are just statistics. In your actual lived experience, you're not seeing a lot of other Latinas in the space. And that's, you know, that's an impact that we can't pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it also comes from, and that's why I'm excited about building Snowball, because a lot of like being able to start a company comes from financial independence, right? Like being able to save money, being able to have the courage to like quit your job and try this full time. Like it takes a lot of, at least for me, I remember like the day I submitted my like resignation letter, I was terrified. Like I like was taking a big risk. I didn't tell my parents, obviously, like it's scary. Yeah, again, yeah. Like, I'm like, because they were not going to let me, you know, they were just going to try to yell at me. But I, you know, it takes a lot of, it's scary. And I think that like, it doesn't get easier even now. Like you know, when I'm fundraising or when I have to do like a live event or something like that, I still feel a little scared, but I have to push past it to do it. So I think that hopefully like people listening will get inspired to start their own companies too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't show up for you, who's going to show up for you? Who's going to show up for you if it's not you, right? And I think for me, that has given me a lot more confidence too, is like, I've never been like a shy person, but I definitely definitely used to get like stage fright, and now I can speak in front of hundreds of thousands of people and I'm fine. And what it is like this mentality that I have of like, I have to tell my story. I have to talk, because if I don't, who's going to speak for me? And so that also like permeates, I think, across the culture. It's like more Latinos have to start speaking up, because if not, who's going to represent us in the media? There's such a small representation of what we actually look like and sound like and live like. And so we have, more of us have to come out and talk boldly so that people can say, oh, you know, there's no reason why I wouldn't know what it's like to be Latinx in America. There really isn't a reason for you to not know. So I think that's definitely important to really speak up and be bold about it. Cool. So I would love to just wrap up with a little bit of it's an inspirational model, but so what I've been doing is actually have a dollar bill where I'll put your money motto. I'll call it a money motto, or money message, or money mantra, where everybody who interacts with money, which I guess it's dying down because people aren't touching dollar bills as much anymore. Hello, COVID. But before, when people would transact, you know, dollar bills are going out in and out of hands like crazy. So we're gonna pretend that's still the case, and everybody who transacts with a dollar bill will see your money message on the dollar bill. So what would your money message or money mantra be?
My money mantra would be manifest wealth without limitations.
Love it.
And so I think it goes back to like what my parents kind of like showed me, and like what we were chatting about earlier. I think that I think it's important to try to envision, you know, your financial freedom. Try to envision like what type of life that you want to live without limitations, without feeling like, oh, I can't do this because of my job, or I can't do this because of like the debt situation that I'm in. Like anything is possible. So trying to imagine and manifest wealth without limitations.
Love that. I love that so much. Yeah, we were just talking about that, you know, like how we always think the sky's the limit. The universe is the limit. The sky's not even the limit. Don't you create limitations where they shouldn't exist. I love that. Cool. So if anybody who is listening is inspired by you or is interested to learn more about Snowball Wealth and to actually sign up for the web app and learn about their own student debt situation a bit more, and just kind of get a bit more organized and learn more about their situation, tell them where they can find you, where they can find Snowball Wealth online, and where they can follow and support your work.
So they can find us at snowballwealth.com, and they can also go to Instagram at Ask Snowball, and we're also on Twitter and LinkedIn. So you can find us on any of those platforms.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to link all of those tags and handles below in the show notes, and I'll also put them in the description box for the YouTube video, so you guys can just click there if you're interested. And definitely reach out to Tanya if you have any questions for her personally about her story, or specifically about the platform, because it's definitely an incredible platform, so there's no reason why you should be shy to reach out. And, you know, just really, for me, I think this episode is really giving you a charge, right? Like an action item that you have to leave here, and you have to really take control of your situation when it comes to your money, specifically student loans, but honestly, all of it. Like, you have to be in control of it, because if not, you know, then it's going to be in control of you. So we definitely want to encourage that empowerment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much also for having me, and for all of the work that you do and all of the tips that you have. Like, I love like the videos and the snippets that you have are just make everything a lot easier to understand. So thank you so much.
Of course. It was my pleasure to have you. Thank you, Tanya. If you like this video, which I'm sure you did because the video was the bomb, then you're going to want to watch all the other episodes of the Mind Your Money with Miss Be Helpful podcast, and they're all right here in this playlist. So click the playlist to watch those episodes. And if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Click the subscribe button right now so you can get videos every single week, and to join Team Be Helpful right here. That's all I have for you guys. Till next time, peace.